Hi and welcome to this week's mailbox, and we've got various questions, a lot of them pertaining to some of the things that came up at PAX as well. So a little bit of new information potentially coming some people's way. But let's just get started with the first question. So this is one about the personal loot. So, there was a little bit more clarification at PAX. We're going to be dealing with personal loot. So someone here saying personal loot is better for the game. Master loot slows the game and can be abused. Personal loot cannot be. Everyone in a raid should have the same chance to get loot. Actually wrong on two areas, really. And then there's another area where it's basically opinion. Master loot doesn't slow the game down because you are always, once master loot distribution is finished, you're not waiting around or anything like that. If you are waiting around, then that says more about the organisation of the guild than it does the master looting system. The procedure is you kill a boss, everyone goes off and clears trash, the master loot sorts out the loot, and then when they finish, they get a summon to the next place. And then you're ready to kill the next. Or if there's a lot of trash, they don't even need to do that, they just follow. And you're still doing the trash when they've done that. So from that point of view, it doesn't at all. Also saying that personal loot can't be abused. It can be abused, and indeed it was abused at the start of Legion when personal loot was pushed much more. So the situation in Legion is the only time you can have master loot is if you have a guild group, which is defined as being at least 80% of the raid, I think it is, from the same guild in that group. And there were issues, particularly towards the start of Legion. I've noticed them less and less, or been told about them less and less, as the expansion's gone on. But nonetheless, situations where, particularly that obnoxious add-on, that when it sees someone's looted something, and it's an add-on that I think does a quick inspect of someone, and if it notes that they've got an equal or higher item level piece in the same slot. In other words, it means that their item can be traded. It flags it to everyone and goes, oh, this person could actually trade this loot. And to which there was a lot of people would then just be saying, okay, well, you should trade that to me and stuff like that because it's because you've already got something higher up. And it might not be, of course, because item level isn't always king. It's looking a bit better in BFA, but in Legion it was pretty bad as an indicator of the quality of loot. And people were actually kicked from raids for not doing this. And again, you can have a situation where with personal loot, you can still be sort of made to hand over things by people running the group, just the same as with Master Looter. It makes it more toxic rather than less toxic, really. So it certainly can be abused. But in terms of the opinion side of it, well, I don't know how much of an opinion it is when every single Mythic guild is of the same viewpoint. Which are basically the main ones who'd be taking advantage of this anyway. I mean, what I suggested, if it's very difficult to know what Blizzard wants to do with personal loot, because Ian Hazakostas was talking mostly about, using it to attack split raiding. And it certainly would prevent, the top guilds are always going to find ways to maximise the loot they can get to their mains. That's always going to happen. And this won't stop that. It will just mean they do it differently. It was always about, the hundreds of guilds that are doing it, right. And not every guild is doing it, but there were collectively hundreds of guilds doing it right from, top world first down to only just inside the top 1,000 of guilds actually doing split raids. Obviously, fewer of them doing it as you go further down, but there are plenty who even miss out on cutting edge that still did some. Because all you need is, you need enough people in your raid to have some reasonably geared outs to the point where they could at least kill some normal and heroic bosses. And it's worth doing at least a few bosses on normal and heroic in your first week. You increase the amount of loot you get. If you can do full clears on those half mains, half alts, then of course you're getting double the loot in that first week. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you indeed? So, the reason for this is, so with personal loot, several things will happen. First of all, in the first couple of weeks, you cannot give the item to the person who's going to benefit most from it. You can even end up with a situation where someone gets an item, they don't want it. It's totally useless to them, but it's too high item level to trade, which in the first couple of weeks is, of course, inevitable. So you've got this situation where it's not going to the person who... And that affects everyone because that hits everyone's progress. right? Because eventually, the people who are the best geared are the ones who are in the guilds who cleared the content quickest anyway, because they're killing more bosses each week, so more loot's coming out, more chance of Titan Forge, or the rest of it. You end up with higher quality gear. You know, I was just talking yesterday in the live rec Q&A about the fact I'm still using 2 pieces of tier 20. Rets in general, mythic raiding rets are not in that position. The reason I'm in that position is because I don't have access to even a full set, even after all this time, of mythic tier 21 pieces in order to rearrange it so that I don't have to wear that. And that's just a pure consequence of the fact that we have not killed as many bosses as guilds several hundred ranks above us. They've killed many more bosses than us because they were killing more bosses in the first week, which meant they killed more bosses in the second week and the third week and so on. It's just a massive amount of extra gear. And part of that is because if you're able to focus the loot on where it's going to do most good, everyone wins because you clear the bosses more quickly, and that means you're into farm more quickly, and then more of the same item is dropping, and you eventually get it much more quickly. The other issue, of course, is that it's not just about giving it to the person who's going to benefit the most. You also can potentially end up in a bit of a perception issue where even in a raid, and I've talked about this before, even in a mythic raid guild, you're going to have people pestering you for something. So let's say something for you, it's personal loot, and something drops. And do you know what? It's a minor upgrade for you. You think, yeah, it's a bit of an upgrade. I'm not, you know, if it was master loot, I wouldn't really bid on it because I know it's a bigger upgrade for someone else. In a situation like that, you could end up with other people go, ah, but that's a huge upgrade for me. Can you just give it to me? In a situation, obviously, where you can trade it. And you'll get some players will go, well, yeah, it's not actually, it's a small upgrade for me. I would wear it. It's not massive. But yeah, I get that it's probably massive for you. But shock horror, not everyone in a mythic guild has the same mindset. There are, I know this might come as some surprise to some people, occasionally you get the odd person in the odd mythic guild that's a bit of a loot whore. So when the tables are turned and someone else gets something that's an upgrade from them, they would wear it, but it's not a massive upgrade, but it's a massive upgrade for someone else. They will make the case, well, I'm going to wear it, it's an upgrade for me, so I'm going to keep it. So you end up with a situation where the more loot hoary players, potentially just through guilt in other people, end up with much better gear than everyone else, which means they then do much better than everyone else because they're just straight up better geared. It doesn't, as some people might think, balance it out. Now, of course, that's speculation. We can't know that that's going to be the case until this runs its course because we're going to get the chance to do that. But, you know, just knowing what people's behaviour is like, having raided at high-end raiding for so many years, yeah. I don't think there'll be many people in Mythic Guilds would disagree with you on that one. But anyway, we will see how it's going because, you know, it's the thing that's going to happen now. So the best thing is to do is to just focus on how, as guilds, we deal with it. Because what we can't do as guilds is just go into BFA with the same mindset on loot that we've always had. The best guilds, the ones that will create the most harmony, will be the ones who've thought about it in advance and still come up with rules. Just because it's going to be personal loot doesn't mean to say guilds won't be able to lay down any sort of rules of engagement, so to speak, when it comes to loot dropping. Because, you know, a happy raid is a well-progressed raid. Next one. So about class fantasy. So I was explaining, and Ian Hazakostas was agreeing, in the Q&A they did a couple of months ago, but maybe 3 months ago now. But I've not seen any movement on it, that there was too much focus on spec fantasy rather than class fantasy in Legion. He agreed with that. And that utility should be much more about class fantasy. So someone's saying, how would class fantasy work though? Spec fantasy makes way more sense. If we wanted class fantasy, then all warlock specs would be good at the same thing. No, they wouldn't. Spec is short for specialization. It means specifically that the warlock class, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to have this warlock class, which has all these generic abilities. That's what defines it as being a warlock. Then what you do is you say, okay, 3 different specs. They're all DPS specs, so straightforward for a pure DPS spec. Well, I say straightforward, actually probably least straightforward for them. But nonetheless, you look at one of them and you say, well, this one should be a single target specialist, which means they shouldn't be actually all that good at AoE. This one should be our AoE specialist, shouldn't be all that good at single target. And then the other one, for whatever else, you know, maybe good at moving, while doing some DPS and maybe sort of okay at single target, sort of okay at AoE, not brilliant at both. That's the standard thing you would do. But that's not what we've got at the moment. What we've got is a situation where you have three very distinct, and they're not specs at all. They're actually like, you might as well make them three different classes because they behave like that, because they've got very few things in common with each other. Warlocks possibly actually have more utility things in common with each other than some other pure DPS specs. But nonetheless, you know, they're so distinct, and not distinct in terms of playstyle, because that's fine. But what should be distinct about them is what they're useful for, which is what you talk about there. You've said yourself, all Warlock specs would be good at the same thing, which they wouldn't. That's actually the bit that's not true. That should be the focus, though. What they're good at, they should all be good at different things. But very frequently they're not. In the pursuit of making them all so distinct from each other, individual specs within the same class, you can still end up with a situation where they're all as good at the same things. And it just comes down to which one sims slightly higher than the others in terms of Mythic Raiders choosing which one to use. And for everyone else, which one just has the utility things or the other abilities that they find most useful. You know, whereas it should be, as I say, as I've just described it, they should basically be very, very, because it's the same class, you're specialising for different roles. That should be how it is. But it's not how it is. Next one, anyway. But there has been no movement, anyway, on making it class-wide, all this stuff. So I don't know what he was talking about, that thing by agreeing. He might as well have not agreed, because they haven't done anything. So next one, I was talking again about, you know, Blizzard was sort of saying they don't understand player behaviour in World PvP. They don't actually get why people behave as they do. To which I said, well, they should ask. So someone's saying here, the reason they don't put out surveys is because they probably won't accurately convey what the players want. That's actually not true. All the wealthiest corporations in the world do surveys of their customers. And the reason they do them is because, you know, it's not a random. We're not talking about some random biased thing. It's a science. There are statisticians that know exactly how to conduct a poll. It's very easy to do. All you need to do is bear in mind a few basic rules, which is what you're taught at school. You're taught how to conduct an effective survey, even in schools. You know, your compulsory maths education. You just need to make sure that you don't ask leading questions, unless, of course, you deliberately want to get a particular response. So, you know, most polls that you see in newspapers or from political parties, for example, they always ask leading questions because they're deliberate. They're not trying to find out what people think. They're trying to prove to other people that everyone thinks like this to get you to conform. But that's a different thing. So if you actually genuinely want to find out what people think, you make sure you don't ask leading questions. You make sure that it's a simple enough question that the response can be done in such a way that you don't have to read a sentence. So you need a limited choice of possible options. The most straightforward survey, of course, is a simple yes-no question, or one that asks you to rate how much you enjoy something from 1 to 5, something like that. Obviously, it has to be something where you can click the answer with radio buttons, not filling something in, because they haven't got the staff to read every single comment. What they ideally want is something where the survey results come up with pie charts, bar charts, whatever it happens to be, what would be the most suitable, with some statistical tools run on them as well. But it's very, very straightforward. As I say, large corporations do it all the time. You know, even Facebook, Twitter, these people ask surveys because, you know, you'd think to yourself, well, they just get their information by monitoring our internet habits. No, they don't. Because they can only infer things from that. It's very powerful data, but they can only infer. Whereas they send us surveys on stuff, they can downright find out what we actually think. So next one, it says, it's actually really difficult to conduct polls to get accurate results. No, it's not. It absolutely isn't. It says, I'm guessing mostly dissatisfied players would bother with it, for example. No, again, I covered it in the thing. What you want to do is to incentivize everyone to do the surveys. And how do you do that? Simple. Little reward. Who's not going to do it for... It's like, you know, how they smooth out queues for dungeons, looking for dungeon, things like that, looking for raid. You know, if there's not enough tanks signing up, what do? Offer you a little satchel. Same sort of thing for this. Offer a little satchel, which will be guaranteed to, give you something that's worth spending a few minutes doing the survey. Obviously, you have to consider how long is it going to take to do the survey. And they might as well throw whatever they want at it. It could be a satchel that gives you... I mean, if they really want you to do it, it could be like a guaranteed pet. Design a pet every month. How long would that take, really? Not that long. And you get the pet for doing that. Every now and then you get a mount or something like that, maybe, if it's a really big survey. Or you could just do a satchel. It's each month. And, you know, you're guaranteed to get some flasks, some potions, some other trade skill materials, some Azerite, and a chance at a pet or a mount or something like that. And, you know, if you don't get it one month, maybe you'll get it the next month, something like that. All sorts of ways to incentivize people doing them. It says, Blizzard is one of the better companies at market research. They're not at all. They're terrible. When Blizzard can actually come out with the statement, we do not understand what, you know, dictates players' behavior in this particular part of the content, they are not one of the better companies at market research. They're terrible at market research. Absolutely dreadful. Unless what you're saying about companies, you're talking about games companies in general, in which case you maybe, I don't know. But their market research is basically nil. What is their market research? There is virtually no market research at all. They come up with what they think players want. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Obviously, it's enough of it is true because they've still got a large following, but it's totally hit and miss. Totally hit and miss. It's not at all based on market research because they don't have any. They have zero. Anyway, that's statistics for now. On to the next one. Anyone? Oh yeah. So this is another one about Blizzard. So this wasn't necessarily. It's a perplexing business decision, but not necessarily a bad one. I was talking about this with my GM today, actually. So I used a piece of artwork for a thumbnail, and someone in the comments put, "Anyone got a link for that artwork? Can't find it anywhere." So the piece of artwork is this one here of Anduin facing off Sylvanas, and as we can see from the larger screenshot there, it's from the World of Warcraft website. Now, here's the thing. This, and I sort of saw the comment, I thought it hit home, is very, very strange, is it not? That a new piece of World of Warcraft artwork comes out, and someone saying can't find it anywhere, so they must have looked in several places. To have not looked on the World of Warcraft website. I mean, and it's true, isn't it? It's true of everyone. When, like with packs, for example, new information, we know new information's come out. Where are we looking? Is our first protocol the World of Warcraft website, which any information on there would be 100% accurate? No. We go to Wowhead, we go to MMO Champion, we go to people's YouTube channels, we go to Twitter, and not to look at what Blizzard or World of Warcraft themselves are saying, but to look at what streamers are saying and YouTubers are saying, and people like that. Isn't that a bit mad? But then again, maybe it's not mad, as my GM was saying. What Blizzard have basically got is a situation where they don't have to do any marketing because we do it all for them. They don't have to put up a load of information on their own website and therefore pay a load of people to keep it up to date, because they can just let Wowhead and MMO Champion do it. And they will occasionally give them little exclusives in order to incentivize them from doing that. They can also invite lots of people and do interviews with people who will then stick it up on Twitch or Twitter or YouTube. Again, and that's going to get out to a load of people as well. And again, they don't need to pay anyone to do that either. They just have to give a little bit of time over to talking to them. And of course, as we can see from the questions, one of my bugbears, isn't it? They don't even have to say anything that they don't want to say. They're not being pinned down by, a journalist in like a political style interview where they might be asked really awkward questions. They're thrown, puffballs, I believe is the expression that Americans would use, just to talk about what they want to talk about. Perfect system, isn't it? Perfect system. But yeah, it just hit home as being, isn't it odd that when you're looking for something World of Warcraft related, it's not that the official WoW website is the last place you would look. It's not a place that people would look at all. Grim. Grim. Anyway, next one. Is it this one? It is this one. So this is, again, usually, I get this every time I talk about world PvP and PvP realms, and you always get people getting very irate, saying, oh, you go to a PvP realm, you're choosing to PvP, which is absolute nonsense, and I've explained several times. I even explained in this video, so anyone feigning ignorance of it at this point is just clearly not paying attention or choosing not to. And, you know, and part of me thinks, why are they getting mad anyway? Because it's about this war mode, the fact that we will now get to choose what we want to be. And it's obvious. I mean, what some of these people want. I'm not talking about everyone who enjoys world PvP. I'm talking about a specific number that get very mad when I talk about giving people choice, which I now don't have to talk about anymore because Blizzard are actually going to do it after many years. And then you realise what it is they want. They don't want to engage with other players in world PvP. That's not what they want at all. What they want to do is to happen across people who are just minding their own business, leveling, and they want to gank them. They want to look out for people who look weak, much, you know, a third of their health and therefore much crappier gear, and just slaughter them and feel good about themselves because they're being bullied in real life or something, or failing at life, and they need to live vicariously through a computer game. But anyway, so one of the responses to this person was, "You are exactly right, sir. A sense of danger in the world is the most important thing for immersion." Now, on to that first point, what I would say is I'm assuming, without trying to be rude, that this person is fairly illiterate because it suggests that they don't read fiction books. Because I'd be thinking to myself, let's say you're reading a thriller. What sense of danger is there really in doing that? I mean, I suppose you could get a paper cut, but I mean, these days a lot of us use Kindles. I mean, it's not very dangerous, is it? Does that mean that I'm not able to immerse myself in a thriller? No, of course not. I can immerse myself very, very easily. But we'll take that aside for one moment. It says, removing the danger of the world breaks immersion. What danger? I feel zero danger when I go to I'm on a PvP realm, have been for some years. I feel zero danger when I go around on my paladin. None at all. I'm hardly ever attacked. Hardly ever attacked. When I am attacked, it's usually by people much lower item level than me, and I easily beat them up. The number of times I'm actually killed, it's like not even once a week. In fact, you know, before Argus came along, because it increased, the incidences increased on Argus, I could go months without anyone attacking me. So where's the sense of danger? These people should be celebrating war mode, because that will increase it, because now the people who are going to be in the war mode on Shard are going to all be people who've chosen to do that. Granted, some of them, if they handle it badly, might well be people who are still PvE-minded players who are putting it on for some bonuses. But I still don't think, unless someone's going to correct me with a link to something, by all means do, because there's still stuff coming out of packs that there'll have been plenty of interviews done that might not filter through for several days. But I still haven't seen much detail myself on what the details of these bonuses are. I think some people are assuming there's just going to be general PvE bonuses like experience bonuses and stuff. I don't see how that would be true. What I'm assuming would be meant by that is you get experience for killing other players and, you know, you get a boost, you get a benefit for that. I don't know. But if there are PvE benefits to having war mode on, all right, yeah, you're going to have some people putting war mode on that don't really want to PvP. You end up with the same situation. But assuming that's not the case, then you end up on a Shard full of players who actively want to PvP. You get your sense of danger back. You get to engage with people who will attack you. They will sneak up on you. While you're sneaking up on one person and trying to attack them, there'll be someone sneaking up on you to gank you and shove their dagger up your arse. That's all great. You'll love you. You'll have a fantastic time. Brilliant. Don't know why people are arguing against it. Really don't. Next one. So this is to do with the Azerite armor. And of course, you know, so we've only got one piece of Azerite armor to even look at, which is the starter piece as well. So it's going to be the most uninspired piece. But noting that it's like a reverse Netherlight Crucible in that one of the options, well, it's not even an option, you just do it. You unlock it, is to get +5 item levels from it. But it's not at the top, it's at the bottom this time. So you have to You can only unlock it once you've got enough of an upgrade on your Heart of Azeroth neck. But yeah, someone's saying that, oh, the +5 item levels, you know, been worth more than the Legion. To do with the stat squish. I mean, it is what it is. I think what it's for is to compensate a little bit for the fact that the armor, quite rightly, cannot, like Titan Forge, which is, you know, very important that it can't. That's a good decision. But at the same time, you don't want these pieces lagging behind your other pieces, so it gives it a +5 item level. So it should be at least not dragging your overall item level down too much. But at the same time, because it's one right at the end, you'll have to work towards it. So when the new, I mean, of course, by the time you get it, you might, if it's something you've been farming for a while, you might already have the Heart of Azeroth level for it. Because remember, what you upgrade is your neck, rather than the individual pieces. But of course, if a raid's just come out and you get the new raid piece, you know, presumably it's going to be set up so that we have to, it'll take some time to unlock everything on it. That's how it's designed. That's what they said at BlizzCon, that it's designed so Azerite is always going to be needed. You're always going to need more Azerite, to be able to unlock the different levels of the Azerite armor. But yeah, so I think the item level is there just to make sure it doesn't drag behind the other ones. And then there was another, I think, Azerite armor question. Was it here? Oh no, this is a transmog one. There were more later on. It says, do you think they're going to keep the transmog options the same when BFA comes out as it is in the alpha? Example, if you have a warrior, you could transmog it to the Fury or Arms weapon. And a warrior can have Ashbringer. I'm certain a warrior won't be able to equip Ashbringer because, as I said this in the comments to someone else as well, the rules of transmog are that if you can't equip it, if that character can't equip it, then they can't transmog it either. Now, I know that the artifact weapons don't have class restrictions on them because, of course, they come from quest rewards. And I know that people will point to tier 3. Like all of the tier pieces, you can't transmog onto a different class because they have the class requirement on them. But tier 3 was a bit of an aberration because you got it through questing and it didn't have the class requirement on it. So you can get tier 3 from, you know, Black Market Auction House, or if you had it already from vanilla, and you can transmog that onto other characters. So of course the very popular tier 3 warrior set can be transmogged also onto paladins and death knights. But I'd be very, very surprised if Blizzard hadn't thought of this, because this is the artifacts have come into the game while transmog has been in the game, and I imagine that in the code there are class requirements there. One thing I can say from being on the alpha is they have put the basic artifact appearances into the alpha to be transmogged, and the only one my paladin has access to are the paladin ones. So I don't have access to warrior ones or anything like that, but if I go on a warrior, I do. So I think that probably answers that one. But in terms of transmog options, the same. There were a few things I almost wanted to do a video on it. There were a few things Blizzard said at PAX that seemed to me to be contradictions. And this, to do with transmog, was one of them. On the one hand, they said that they're not looking to loosen up any of the restrictions on transmog, which is disappointing. So they said they're not looking to loosen up any of the restrictions on transmog, which I just find very, very disappointing, because it prevents me being able to design my character to look the way I would want it to look. But then they also said, well, they said a weird thing first. They said that transmog is still in its infancy. It's been out for about 8 years, hasn't it? How is that in its infancy? Many games don't even last 8 years. How can a feature that's been in the game for 8 years be in its infancy? I know they've improved it slowly over time. It's developing, get it? But it's not in its infancy. But anyway, they said it's in its infancy. Let's just put that comment to one side. And they are definitely on the lookout for feedback and ways to improve it. Now that, to me, doesn't really sit side by side with, yes, but we're not going to be loosening up any of the restrictions. So in what way do they want, what sort of feedback do they want? because that's the only feedback left. We now have a nice system where we don't have to retain items to be able to transmog them. We can destroy them. It's fine. It's saved. You know, we've got a mount that we can use to transmog. You know, we've got everything we need to actually transmog now. We're just, the only thing that could be changed, as far as I know, someone could correct me for something I'm not thinking of, is to loosen up those restrictions, but they say they won't do it. So, don't know. Next one. Right, okay. So there's one minor, because I talked about the Horde attacking Borreless. There's a dungeon called Siege of Borreless. One minor correction. The Horde didn't exactly straight out attack Borreless. They saw what was going on, some weird elemental flooding the place, and Ashvane being a mad woman, thus the Horde decided to just go covert and take the resources while the chaos is happening. Ah, poor innocent Horde players. You see, this is, and I understand it, I absolutely get it. You're a peaceful Tauren or a Darkspear troll, or even just an orc that wants to just return to your shamanistic roots, and you don't like the idea of being the bad guys. But I'm sorry, we're going to have to face up to a few facts. You are about to become arsonists, all right? Not very good ones, you know, because the bottom line is you're going to set fire to one of our trees, and we're going to take an entire region from you. That's just how it is. But nonetheless, you are going to be starting it. And this is the same. Even Blizzard at BlizzCon said that the aim of Siege of Borreless for the Horde is to attack Borreless. Yes, Ashvane's in there as a boss. It's a dungeon. We have to have bosses to go through. And they said the aim. They didn't just say the Horde are going to attack Borreless. They said the aim for the Horde is to attack Borreless. So, you know, I get it. I do get it. You don't want to be the bad guys. But do you know what? You are. For this expansion, at least, you are. Next one. Oh, so this... Yeah, okay. So we've got a couple of questions now about the Azerite armor again. Looks seriously underwhelming so far. Hopefully this is only the bare bones of the system. Kind of worried that it's probably not going to get much more exciting than this. Now, I'll take that point first of all. It definitely is. It definitely is. For two big reasons. One, if it was just going to be boring traits on it, there is no reason on earth why they'd have only released one. I mean, I still don't know why they only released one. Well, it was pointless. They were obviously going to get a lot of negative reaction from it, because the one they've released is your bog standard starter for 10. Okay? And that's all there is to it. It's just bargain basement. They haven't even given us like shoulders and helm with it. They haven't even put in the quest rewards yet. There are quests that give us Azerite armor pieces, but the only rewards we're getting at the moment are secondary statless chest, shoulders, and helm. So the quests are there. They just haven't put the Azerite armor in. And the second thing is that it's a quest. Well, this is the first quest reward. This is like your 110 starting piece. They're inevitably going to be getting more interesting, and they've already said that, you know, the raid ones will be the more powerful ones, and again, you've got to assume surely the dungeon ones will be more powerful than the questing ones as well. You know, the questing ones will be the most basic, so inevitably they will begin becoming more interesting. So that, you know, we just can't see it yet, that's all. It says the only choice will be on which piece of gear you equip. I mean, for leveling, it doesn't really matter that much, because leveling is something that takes, you know, a matter of days or hours for some people. If they all have different traits, which is what we do anyway, so what's the point of the system? The point of the system is it's our talent system. It's our customization. And it is a customization more so than with artifact weapons. Because artifact weapons, your only choice at the start was which route to take. And quite frankly, even that wasn't a choice. You just took the route that was best. I mean, when I did the Ashbringer video, gave people a few choices depending on what they were working towards and how long it would take them. But basically, there was a sensible path to take. Whereas this one, I mean, choice is sometimes the wrong word. I've said that on more than one occasion this weekend. I think variety is probably a better word to use, that we would use different pieces or different configurations for different fights. Although configurations is a bit of an issue at the moment. It says, might as well just bake all this stuff into the classes themselves. Well, effectively it is. By doing it on the Azerite armor. You can almost think of this like as a very complex talent system, because the number of configurations possible would be quite large. Even given that some of those configurations you wouldn't do at all. So, for example, on a pure DPS class, as I showed in the video on Azerite armor, on the second row, you've got a choice of 3 different traits that will buff your DPS. Great. However, for a paladin, for example, that's got 1 healing spec, 1 DPS spec, and 1 tanking spec, you get on that second row a tanking trait, a healing trait, and a DPS trait. So there's no real choice at all as to which to take. So some of the rows, there's an actual choice to take. Some of the rows, there isn't. And on probably most of the rows where there is even a pretend choice, you're still going to end up simming it. But at least it would be different for different fights. Anyway, so confusing. Hopefully Blizzard will come out and clarify some info about all this, since they've been pretty quiet about how the Azerite system will work so far. Well, even when they've opened their mouth at PAX, it hasn't necessarily helped. They've actually uttered the words, "We don't yet know how we want Azerite to work." They're still discussing exactly how it's all going to work. I mean, we know it's going to work to empower our Azerite armor and to be able to turn it in for war fronts and stuff like that. But beyond that, they're still not sure themselves. That's a little bit worrying at this stage. You know, when they've announced the release date and everything, that's a bit worrying. But, you know, we'll find out more when they have decided, and presumably, we also know, well, we'll say no. I think they've said at PAX, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to go into beta, and they've already said that beta comes out when it's content, like, ready, you know, when the content's there. Just needs tuning. Now, at the moment, there's an awful lot of things that we can't test in there, including Azerite armor, because we've only got 1 piece. That's not really testing. So I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot more suddenly being added and a lot more invites going out in the next couple of weeks as well. So on to the last question, which is also about Azerite armor, I believe. So it says here, not sure why people would like the artifacts more than this. The artifact was linear after the first patch. This system, it was linear before the first patch, really. I know what you mean, though, in terms of the paths you could even take. This system at least gives the option to pick and choose different builds. Also will make sure you want to get multiple pieces of gear from different four different specs, builds and boss fights. I think it has more potential. Reminds me of old skill trees. Absolutely, but in terms of why people might prefer one system over another, you do have to bear in mind there are differences, and where there are differences, there will always be people. Some people prefer one system, some prefer another. For example, with artifacts, some people liked the fact that you wouldn't have to choose and you would eventually get everything. And it wouldn't actually take that long to get everything either. The other thing that came with it is more visual. You had a weapon with interesting visuals. I'll use the word interesting because I don't like all of them, but they're all interesting. And it's something that's very, very visible on your character. The Azerite shoulder, helm and chest, again, are visible on your character, and they may well look very, very nice. But if they don't match the other armor you're wearing, which they probably will because we know how it's going to work, we should be able to get similar pieces from the same thing. They're not necessarily as distinctive as a weapon, are they? So, and again, with the weapon, we had lots of different skins to chase after as well. So there was a lot of interest from the cosmetic side of it. And as I keep saying, and this is why it baffles me, Blizzard don't go for more cosmetic rewards instead of just gear rewards all the time. People like the cosmetic look of their character. You know, there's nothing excites a lot of people more than discussing things like transmog and how to find, you know, hidden skins and best way to get these skins for the artifact weapon and stuff like that. All of those cosmetic issues are largely disappearing because of this. Because, you know, okay, people are going to be interested to see what the sets look like, but that's all it is, it's a set. The fact that it also happens to be Azerite armor is irrelevant because they're going to judge the overall set, which includes more than just those 3 pieces of armor. The other 5, or at least 4 of those pieces of armor, the wrist, are also going to be a factor in whether people like it or not from a cosmetic point of view. So that's the advantage for the artifact weapon system. But of course, as you say, the advantage with this system is it is much more like the old talent systems. You've got a lot more combinations of things possible there. I suppose a potential downside to that is Blizzard have to be a bit careful that someone doesn't come up with a combination that makes them broken. Balancing is much more dangerous because, yeah, you could end up with an unexpected combination of traits that somehow just makes a character explode in terms of its power. They'll have to be very, very careful to be on the lookout for that. And presumably, because, you know, these things can easily go live without people drawing their attention to it, be able to quickly get on top of it and deal with it as and when it happens. Because I think, you know, especially with the more interesting traits, which I've already said are going to be appearing in the raid gear, you know, that's very possible. That is very, very possible. So yeah. Now, the other thing I'm afraid just going to have, I've created another little graphic here. It's not a dictionary corner, but I've continued to have a lot of people going on about the April Fool's thing. I had one particularly good comment, but I'm not going to show that. I'm not picking on people. But I thought, you know, I explained this last week, but I thought I needed a graphical demonstration of time. So, here's a globe. I found a globe. I've got a globe. I forgot I had a globe. I'm afraid, sorry, it's not showing very well on the old chroma key there because, you know, greenish bits. Greeny blue, really. So, let's have a look at the situation. So, let's imagine that this bit that's onto is the sun. This is the direction the sun's in. So, at this point here, like Central Europe-ish, okay? And, you know, and it's, let's say that's, well, let's say it's not the sun. Let's say this is the opposite of the sun. So let's say this is the midnight line, because that's what's important. So at this point, the people on this side are, you know, it's April Fool's Day for them. It's April the 1st, it's just come midnight. But for me, it's not. It's still March the 31st. So we go around, we go around, we go around. And we get to the point where it's over the British Isles. Down the Greenwich Mean Line. Greenwich, of course, the place where time was invented. And at this point, it's April the 1st. But I wait half an hour. I actually scheduled it. I put it up earlier. And then I scheduled it for it to come out at midnight midnight. So there it comes on midnight midnight. Now, the people on this side of this line, it's been April the 1st for ages. Some of them are having lunch, okay? Over in Australia, they're probably having a barbie or something, which I've never really understood because I've been given to believe all you have to do is get food out of a packet and it bursts into flames. I don't know why they actually need the barbecue, but there you go. Someone could maybe explain that to me. But of course, in the new world, you know, it's still March the 31st, sorry. So we wait for the sun to move, or more specifically for the Earth to rotate. Because, you know, the Earth isn't actually flat. We've already established that, I hope. So we get there, and then, you know, oh, I think I might have gone past it. Sorry, I'm in Canada now. Never mind. And we get to the point where it's now April the 1st there. But they look at it and they go, oh no, but it was, you know, it came out on March the 31st. But do you see how time works now? Hopefully you see how time works. I would recommend people get globes. Globes are fascinating. Mine's got a picture of a polar bear on it in South America for some reason. You see that? Looks like a polar bear in South America. I don't know. My sister got it me. But anyway, hopefully that explains that one. I hope you enjoyed the video as well. I'm hopefully going to be getting out a few more PAX related videos, but I'm aware of the fact I'm going to be streaming in a little while. So that might be more tomorrow now. But if you did enjoy it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share with other people who might be interested in my random rambling. Until next time, I'll see you later.